Today we are going to talk about the path to become a party's presidential nominee. This process starts once candidates have already announced their campaigns and have been campaigning for a few months. Then the caucuses and primaries come around. Primaries are conducted at regular polling stations, usually funded by the state and run by state election officials. Voters generally cast a secret ballot for their preferred candidate. Typically, there are two types of primaries: closed, when only voters registered with the party holding the primary can participate, and open, when voters are not required to be registered with the party holding the primary. Prior to the 1970s, the majority of states chose their delegates using caucuses, but after reforms were established in 1972 to make the nomination process more inclusive and transparent, most states adopted primaries. Not all states use primaries, though. Some choose to use caucuses. The way a caucus works is it is a local meeting that is financed and managed by the two major parties, in which registered party members gather to discuss and express support for the various presidential candidates. The Republican and Democratic parties run their events a little differently. For instance, in Iowa, in 2016, Republicans cast a secret ballot for their preferred candidate, while Democrats physically grouped themselves according to the candidate they supported and then took a tally. Democratic candidates must attract a minimum percentage of all the attendees to receive delegates. Caucuses participants are technically not choosing a presidential candidate, but rather choosing delegates who will represent them in voting for their candidate at the next convention level. Delegates for the National Convention are selected at the state and congressional district conventions. Delegates are often early supporters of a given candidate, local political leaders, or party activists. Presidential campaigns court state and local politicians for their roster of delegates, since they typically bring the support of their political president. Delegates can also include members of a campaigns committee or longtime active members of the local party organization. On the Democratic side, candidates who are commonly awarded delegates on a proportional basis. For example, a candidate who receives 1/3 of the vote or support in a given primary or caucus receives roughly 1/3 of the delegates. The Republican side has rules that are slightly varied. Some states award delegates based on proportion. Some are winner-take-all. Superdelegates are unelected delegates who are free to support any candidate for the presidential nomination at the party's national convention. The Republican Party does have superdelegates, however, they function differently for the GOP than Democrats. That includes all current Democratic governors and members of Congress, as well as former presidents, former vice presidents, and state party chairs. They can vote for whichever candidate they wish, regardless of how the state that they come from votes. In the Republican Party, only the people who receive a superdelegate status are 3 members of each state's national party. The key difference is that the Republican superdelegates do not have the freedom to vote for whichever candidate they please. The Democratic National Convention is a series of presidential nominating conventions held every 4 years since 1832 by the United States Democratic Party. Delegates from all 50 U.S. states and from American dependencies and territories such as Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands attend the convention and cast their votes to choose the party's presidential candidate. The Republican National Convention, otherwise known as RNC, is the presidential nominating convention of the Republican Party of the United States. Some 2,472 delegates attend. The winner must carry 1,237, half of the total plus 1.